filtering your own spell, your own existence as an artist or existence as a person. I won't say an artist, but as a person, everything about you will be questioned. In what scenario you are standing, like, what are you? At that particular point, I was in Bangalore for a long time, and I had a very strong thought, I want to be famous, I want to be a good dancer, I want to make money. All these things were there when I went to master. But later, interacting with him, seeing what he lives in, the life that he lives, everything slowly starts going away. So a lot of filtering happens. Even that is an unlearning process or adapting to what is going on.
As a student, I feel we are following instructions. We are fulfilling expectations from our teachers, from our elders. We're fulfilling a set of expectations. And we are our bodies, I feel, are like these recording devices, that these masters have been put, habituated movement into. So a lot of the movement was recorded in the bodies. And some of this did not require much thinking at that time. But then as you grow, as you become an adult and you start thinking, there is something called somatic intelligence, and there is something that is called agency, right? So this idea of agency, where does this agency lie? With the teacher until you're in training with them. And then does it become divided as you start to explore, right? As you start to question, as you start to challenge what you've learned. And as there are these mental models that are set up for you as you are learning as a child or as a teenager. Or as you start to discover, or maybe perhaps become dissatisfied with some of what you've learned, which is also okay. So when you start to explore these challenges, I feel the process of unlearning then becomes deeper.
Just taking responsibility. I think that is, kind of key to so many of these different issues. Taking responsibility for your fear, taking responsibility for your product. It's not just about having, of course, arts is supposed to be fun, but whatever is the outcome, are we able to take responsibility for it? Can we say, no, I still did this. I failed fabulously. I did this and, it didn't work and I fell flat on my face, but that's okay. And, I think that idea of integrity and saying, yeah, it's still mine. It didn't work, but it's still mine. And to kind of just take responsibility for it, I think is just key.
To just make it available, that different sources are informing you, is an important part of unlearning. It is not cutting yourself off from sources, but attaching yourself to more number of sources and discretion as to what you want to bring into your art form. This whole idea of limited time and vast learning, we have infinite things to learn about. We have infinite forms to be, having awareness on different perspectives. So you have a limited time to learn, to be dancing, to everything is limited, maybe to 40 years if you're lucky, 60 years if you're even luckier. But basically, that is still finite time. And this is where I feel what Preeti brought, saying, attending workshops not to learn items, but to learn ideas, is something which doesn't happen only in workshops. If you can have a notebook where you're jotting down observations after a kacheri, whether irrespective of the fact that you like it or not, whether you're having the patience to sit and see something which you hate to be at, but really to look at it and observe for technique and what their growth has been, what their thought process has been. So right now in the unlearning part, most of the things which were spoken was, how do you go inwards personally? How do you go find your voice? How do you do this? How do you do that with respect to this person? But this person is limited. It's finite. Your time is finite. Your knowledge is finite. Everything is finite. But when you do have the inkling to look through what you're seeing, that informs you of your journey as well. So I think dance observation, which is nil in Bharatanatyam, where you're looking at your ancestors and see their process of unlearning. What did they do at that time, whether it was Balama or Rukmini Devi? What are the things they dismantled in order to be who they are is an interesting study by itself.
When you just look at unlearning as a concept, there are two ways in which you can look at it. One is to be able to learn, you unlearn, right? We grasp things and we throw away things. It's like cleaning a drawer. You rearrange things, you throw clutter away, and you reorganize, you reconfigure. So that's one definition of unlearning. But the other definition is it becoming a conscious choice to not do for a while, to be, to wait, and to observe, and to also observe how you learn, what makes you learn. It's not just about what you learn, but how you learn. Observing your own process of learning. How do I grasp? Everyone grasps differently, even from the same teacher. That's what I've realized in my years of teaching, and that's what I'm fascinated by. How is this student grasping what I'm giving? I'm giving the same instructions, but different students are taking different things according to their build and their knowledge. So that process of self-inquiry about how I learn, what is my process, has always helped me in my unlearning.
I think for me, it's a lifelong relationship with my body. And dance is a bit incidental, actually. For me, sometimes, my relationship with my body requires me to eat a whole tub of ice cream. And sometimes my relationship with my body requires me to take a walk, or sometimes it requires me to dance. And there is a desire to share that embodied communication, which then becomes performance. So for me, what is my relationship with my body, and what is that relationship with dance? I think that has been like the biggest unlearning for me. What does it take to unlearn? And I think to me, it came down to three things. One is courage. The second is curiosity. And the third is integrity. And I say courage because in the process of unlearning, you can be sure you will piss off somebody. Yeah, you will piss somebody off. It might be yourself, but you will piss someone off. Also, as Kumudha and others were speaking, there is always this sense of like, oh my God, am I getting it right? Like, is it okay to question this, etc.? So courage is an important factor. Curiosity, I think, to look beyond, but to also kind of look under, to look over, to, uncover something. And, so there needs to be a bit of curiosity, I think. And I think the last thing that I want to say is integrity, because once you begin to unlearn, it's a personal journey and you're standing on your own feet. You have to begin to take responsibilities for your choices. You can't say, oh, my teacher told me to do this, or this is how it's always done, right? So I think integrity is a key element for me in the process of unlearning.
To build the discipline of responding to what's happening at that moment is something that is I'm constantly trying to work upon, and not pre-imagine a Sangati. Sometimes Auntie says, stop singing in your own head. Try to listen to what's being sung right now live for you. Try to enjoy that. Bring emotion through that music and not through something that you're comfortable and already kind of decided that looks good. So that is a challenge that I think I am really facing at this point.
If I'm learning something new, be it a form, be it a movement form, be it a content, it means I'm unlearning something old. And when I'm unlearning this new part, I'm learning something else. So it has always been a cyclical journey for me. And what to unlearn has something that has always stayed with me, because like I said, I come from a family of hereditary musicians where everyone is into folk music. I come from that family. To unlearn the biases that sort of are unconsciously imposed on you because you are born into a tradition, and to make of what tradition actually means. I think that was a very, very important part of my learning journey, to unlearn the meaning of tradition, wherein we always see it as something stationary, frozen in time. It took me a long time to unlearn that it is not that, and relearn that tradition is actually a flowing river.
Talk about safe spaces. Why we're scared is because we're scared of judgment, we're scared of breaking traditions, we're scared of doing something that we are consciously or unconsciously doing to move away. And I think having safe spaces are really important. And I think being kind is important, and not judging for who you are or what you're presenting, but just appreciating and absorbing, right?
Learning, unlearning. So learning for me, of course, I think my journey of my life is about learning. If there's anything that I, don't have humility about, is the fact that I'm an eternal, learning fiend, so to speak. But sometimes learning also translates to knowing more and more about less and less, expertise becomes that. And that's the point. I think we need to shift the focus and look at the concept of unlearning. So to me, unlearning is really unraveling. It's also kind of peeling the various layers that we have to be able to see other possibilities, right? And not to be seen in a negative sense or have this negative connotations about unlearning is about departure from what you have learned and disregarding it in a sense, right? So I really feel that there are two sides of a coin, and you need one to be able to make the other space fertile and exist.
I don't think it's a mutually exclusive function or event, right? Learning is continuous, and perhaps unlearning is too, right? So, and what I understand by unlearning is about internalizing what you learn, and then whatever comes out from that deep well of learning that you have done, whatever comes out is something that you own up to, something that is yours, something that is an individual expression, is belongs to your vision, your thought process. So that unlearning is actually what goes inside and comes out as an individual expression, I feel, is unlearning. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
absolutely, yeah.
So naturally, I think both of them, they're constantly evolving. So when I have reached a stage of maturity, when I mature with experience and with as a performer, as a teacher, as a student, then even what I learn is colored by my unlearning, isn't it? And therefore, what I take in, what comes out, so everything keeps evolving.
For example, when a Kathak dancer goes to a Bharatanatyam school or any other school in particular, the mindset is he or she has to unlearn the habits if she's trained in Kathak or in Bharatanatyam in order to learn a new style. But in the Temple of Fine Arts, however, when we learn dance, dance is taken as a big deal. We approach dance as dance. So Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Contemporary, all was part of learning dance. In GFE, I think the teachers who taught us never said doing Kathak was not good for a Bharatanatyam dancer or vice versa. Dancers were taught many different Indian classical forms. On a superficial level, talking about unlearning, for example, if you go into a Bharatanatyam class, you have to hold your hands up tight, yeah? Your elbow should be up, you have to be straight, and you have to hold yourself up. Whereas you go into a Kathak class, you have to be much more looser, relaxed. It's not the Karakamukas or the mudras are all not so held not so strongly. Yeah. So the point is about, I think for me, it's about the intention.